I'm Dave Baker.
And I'm Andrew Price.
And I'm Mark Sargent.
Welcome to Deep Cuts, the podcast where we pick a topic and walk you through the ins, the outs, and the nitty-gritty so that you can appear like an interesting and idiosyncratic person at your next forced social function. Today's topic is...
Mark Sargent, Part 2?
Who is Mark Sargent? Well, he's a former professional video game player, comic book store owner, and the figurehead of the rising wave of ignorance and anti-science thought which has coalesced under the moniker the Flat Earth Movement. Despite our initial misgivings over fanning the flames of stupidity, we decided to reach out to Mark on a Hail Mary chance that he'd take the time to answer our exceedingly pressing questions around the eternal feud between the band The Deftones and the band Chevelle. What transpired was a roughly 2.5-hour conversation that focused on both Mark's unsubstantiated beliefs surrounding COVID-19 and the idea that the Earth is flat, as well as his personal life. Despite Mark's horrifically ignorant views, I might have become best friends with him? Thank you for making this.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no worries at all. I mean, why not? The end of the world's coming anyway.
I look forward to discussing that more, and also that's something you could probably convince me of as we move closer and closer. Oh boy,
that's not hard.
Yeah,
Like, are you kidding? Well, how much time we got? 2 weeks? Yeah.
Maybe, I guess, do you want to kind of give whatever your version of a mission statement is of what the Flat Earth Movement is or what it's about?
It's mostly about world domination. More than anything else, it's really more of a cult mission statement. I actually have a thing I was supposed to read. No, it's nothing like that. The mission statement is this: I am part of a group that doesn't believe that we are living on a tiny little rock flying through space in impossible directions in a weird universe that doesn't make any sense. I believe, along with a lot of my friends, that we are living in a building with walls and a floor to ceiling. And it was so big that even our best and brightest didn't figure it out until about 1960. The best way to describe it would be a snow globe, a planetarium, a terrarium, a pizza box, something that was up until now, up until very, very recently, undiscovered. And we put it out there on the internet. It's like, oh, you know what? Prove us wrong. And it just kept growing and growing since 2015. In fact, less than a week from now, I'm leaving Thursday night for even despite the pandemic thing, we're doing a conference this year. No masks down in South Carolina. So hundreds of people have already bought tickets and I'm going to open the damn thing. How fun is that?
I mean,
and I have not traveled since January. So this is a big deal because I went to 7 countries last year. And did speaking things and all over the place, and even did a commercial in Australia for a mobile company and a mobile app. And then everything hit in January. It's like nobody went anywhere, and our community said, "You know what? Screw this. Let's just do it anyway." And so we had to find a venue, which ended up being a Shriners Convention Center in Greenville, South Carolina, because we were supposed to be in Vegas. And we couldn't go because they said, nope, sorry, we're not even doing it. Even if you did, we'd have to require masks. So anyway, there you go. That's my mission statement.
Well, thank you. And I'm just curious about one of the things that you brought up there is what's the logic behind no masks?
Well, we're talking about a conspiracy group. If you're into flat Earth, you are into just about every conspiracy you can think of. You'll at least entertain it. What I try to tell people is like, look, if you like your life the way it is, don't look at the flat Earth at all. Because once you do, if you can get your head past the whole flat Earth concept, you're going to revisit every conspiracy ever. And there's a new term that's been out for the last year and a half called auto-hoaxing, which I don't like, but it's true. And I see it all the time where now the conspiracy world is so hyper intense, kind of like everything now, is that you believe that everything is a hoax. It's basically guilty until proven innocent. And so if you see it on the mainstream news, it's like, no, lie, hoax, whatever. And so when the virus came out, it's like, no, No, not buying it for a second. And I could spend an entire show on the virus thing. I know you guys don't want to talk about that, but that was our thing, where it's like, no one wants to wear a mask because no one's buying it. At least not the hype. Not necessarily, it's like, fine, are people getting sick? Sure, fine. Does it mean you have to shut the whole world down? No. And so that's the statement. I mean, same with our people that are protesting in England and Spain and Europe and all over the place. That's why we're doing it. None of us would even go to this conference if there was a mask required. As a matter of fact, if people show up with masks, I almost guarantee there'll be media, which will be hilarious because we'll give them a whole bunch of crap.
I'm curious about the way you phrase that too, because that's very interesting to me. Because, sometimes when you talk about these things, it seems like you're almost on the periphery looking into a community, which is very interesting as somebody who is the figurehead of this movement, more or less. I mean, I'm not saying you are necessarily. I'm just saying that a lot of people have pointed to you.
Yeah, I'm different when it comes to conspiracies because I'm more on the objective side. I don't, in fact, the way I qualify a conspiracy is very, very different from the other conspiracy world people in the community. I mean, you go to conspiracy conferences before ours and it'd be dark whispers and everything's really sinister. And is that a black hat over there? Oh my God, it's, Men in Black. And people, be speaking along those terms. But for me, a qualifier for any conspiracy is, does it benefit the greater good? And because my training of, doing the whole proprietary software thing and customer service for years and years and years, where I was dealing with really high stress clients because they were paying way too much money for our software. I can empathize. I can put myself in other people's shoes. It was a skill I developed over the years. And so putting myself in like the government's shoes or the powers that be, and take your pick, Illuminati, Bilderbergs, Council of Foreign Relations, Vatican, Masons, who cares? I can put myself in their shoes and say, okay, why is this conspiracy happening? Not that it's bad or good. Why is it happening? Why would you do it? And if I look at it and say, oh, yeah, I get it. I see why it's happening. If it makes sense, if the ends justify the means, then it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I totally go along with that. Not that I approve, but I'm not going to condemn it because, like, look, they're doing it because that's their goal. So yeah, it pisses off people in my community somewhat, but at the same time, it's like, look, I don't care. That's how I work.
Do you feel any sort of responsibility to people who might be, immune, or who might have immune systems that don't function as well, that are going to this conference, that might be big fans of yours, that might want to hear what you have to say?
Oh, you mean like if it's going to be like a super spreader event, one of those things like Sturgis or something like that? No, I don't feel bad in the slightest because we're halfway through October. And again, I don't want to turn this into a big virus rant, but this was the biggest bait and switch I've ever seen in the history of mankind. Which is, you tell us right off the bat that 1% of the population is going to die. It's going to turn into the Spanish flu, and 3% of all senior citizens are going to die. That's huge numbers, massive numbers. I mean, we're talking 3.5 million dead in the United States alone. That's even without taking in the senior citizen thing. And we didn't even, it's not 3 million, not 2 million, not 1 million. It's not even, we're at 200,000 after
like
10 months.
215, I think, something like that.
It's nothing. It's literally, in fact, I just did a rant recently. That is the same amount as auto accidents in the world. I mean, that in fact, it's really weird. You can plot those two on the same graph. It's the same as auto accidents. So what happened? And nobody's backing off on this. Plus, one of my big things, oh my God, which is how I'm getting to the conference, is if it's an actual pandemic, you shut down the airports. You close them. That's what you guys are media people. You know this. In every book and movie, that's how it works. I mean, my God, the opening of, Stephen King's It. Not It. Stephen King's The Stand, where the guy gets out of the army base, he gets into a plane, and that's it. Or the end of 12 Monkeys, or everything. The airplanes are just an incubator. That's why they banned smoking from airplanes, because the HEPA filters do nothing. Every airline pilot I've talked to says the same thing. Oh, yeah, you make coffee in the back of the plane, we'll smell it in the front in 10 seconds. It's that fast. If you can smell it, those particles are going to get there. So why didn't you shut down the airports? Shutting down the borders, that's one thing. You didn't shut down any domestic travel. No airports closed, ever. No one can explain it. So no, I feel no guilt at all whatsoever. I am one of those, and this may sound cynical, but I can put a price on human life. Always have, and it goes into my conspiracy things. You can put a price on human life. Do you shut down the entire country, create God knows how many homeless, God knows how many dead from suicides, and God knows how many from everything else, all the residual effects. For what? Exactly. For how many people? The average age of people dying are what, 80, 75, 80, something like that? Sorry, I'm not going to wear a t-shirt that says I'm killing grandma, but no, I don't feel guilty in the slightest. Nope. Never will.
Like you said, we're here to talk about a little bit of other topics, but just as a closing point, I just want to be completely transparent and say that I know people who've been killed by the virus, and I find it profoundly disturbing that you don't find any sort of responsibility in that. But
you would be the only person I know that has known pain. And I'm sorry, but I also don't believe necessarily in how they're tagging people for it. I mean, there was a wonderful story that came out not even 2 months ago where a son got a letter saying his mother tested positive for the virus in July. Well, that was a problem because she died in February, and the CDC wouldn't back down on that. They said, no, she tested positive in July. It's like, what are you talking about? She's been dead for 5 months. So sorry. And I'm sorry if it creates a rift between us, but that's how it is.
One of the things I'm more interested in discussing is how the flat Earth thing kind of bubbled up, and specifically the kind of levers of power that have facilitated it. And oh my God, there's a helicopter. So like I was saying, I'm more interested in talking about just a little bit of, I'm curious as to your experience, because I think there's kind of fundamental differences between the way you see the world and the way I see the world, and I'm not really interested. I've watched a bunch of your interviews, and I'm personally not interested in having kind of a confrontational tete-a-tete about the kind of pseudoscience or the kind of conspiratorial side of things of your whole HD camera that can see beyond the curvature of the Earth. Like those kind of points that you make that just aren't true. I'm not interested in discussing that. I'm more interested in discussing you as a person and kind of specifically what it's like to be inside that as it kind of grows, if that makes sense. Like, one of the things I'm really interested about is, Facebook has been a massive incubator, no pun intended for our previous discussion, but it's been a massive incubator for misinformation and conspiracy theories and far right ideologies, some of which you may disagree with, some of which you might agree with, but that's not necessarily the point. The thing I'm curious about is, when you first launched your YouTube channel, were you going into those groups and posting videos? Did those groups play a part in your YouTube channel growing? How do you view those groups? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, they did them all on their own. I've never even owned a Facebook account because I was getting stretched too thin with YouTube as it was. When I first made my stuff, I didn't even realize that and I think it was talked about in the documentary, that my stuff was being spread around by other YouTube channels and Facebook posts and wherever else was in the game. Because I made my stuff Creative Commons license. Mm-hmm. And so people were just spreading it and renaming it, and kind of, because you never know what's going to resonate with the general public. I mean, some of the biggest videos that came out on my side didn't even have Flat Earth in the title. They were titled, They Are Hiding God with the Greatest Lie Ever. They Are Hiding God with His Biggest Lie Ever. Under the Dome, full documentary, which I thought was weird because they were playing off the Stephen King television series. And those are getting millions of hits. And yeah, there were people creating Facebook stuff. There's Facebook stuff with my name on them right now, and I don't go after them. It's like, yeah, fine. Go nuts. Go crazy. In fact, I encourage trolls. The trolls helped us more than anything, because producers told me this. I learned so much from field producers over the last 5 years, where they said, it doesn't matter whether you love a topic or you hate a topic, as long as you're engaged in the topic. You get to, in fact, people are drawn to the negative side of things when you're railing against a topic even more than when you're trying to build it up. I give you a perfect example of that. There was a celebrity, I'll tell you, I mean, it doesn't really matter now. It's been a couple of years. Kelsey Grammer was telling me, the actor, he was telling me about how he found about Flat Earth. And I go, really? How'd you find about Flat Earth? He goes, Amy Adams told me about it at the Oscars. And I go, okay, how'd that happen? He goes, she hates it. She hates it so much. And I go, really? And he goes, yeah. She was She was at this Oscar party, and all these people were whispering about conspiracies and blah blah blah. And she comes in and she goes, you can put all that BS to bed. Let me tell you the crap my father's into. And she goes off in this freaking tirade against flat Earth. Well, that goes into the point. It was like, people, you want to say something nice about something, people, oh yeah, Amy likes it. But once she started doing it, it's like, wow, why does Amy hate that so much? Click, 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 click. And then people started getting into it. So yeah, sorry, long-winded answer to, yes, people spread all this stuff on their own, and I encouraged it, positive or negative. The old saying still applies, which is even bad press is free.
There's a couple things that were touched upon before in your spiel. The idea behind flat Earth is that we're not just randomly coasting through the universe with no meaning. And you've talked about that before in other interviews that I've seen. And I found that interesting. And there's a couple other things that we talked about that I feel like they're kind of all waypoints into like a bigger idea that I kind of have. You talked about the auto hoaxing thing. And, I was curious, I kind of wonder about this about a lot of conspiracy theories, these kind of ideologies, whether it's conspiracy theories or even, whether it's like, as an example, religion and the way that people interpret religion and the Bible. There's a blurred line between, and it's disagreed upon with tons of different people. There's no one thing that's agreed upon by everybody, but there's a blurred line between what's literal interpretation and what's figurative interpretation. And, the stuff that you talked about with the tenet behind flat Earth being, this belief that we aren't just like insignificant beings floating meaninglessly through the universe. To me, that sounds very much like somebody sort of emotionally trying to make sense of their place in the universe and organize the sort of disparate aspects of their consciousness to make themselves feel that significance. And it reminds,
absolutely. In fact, the parallels to religion that did not escape me. Right off the bat, there were people. In fact, the Christian community, even before I had finished the first battery of clues, the Christian community was emailing me en masse saying, you have got to address the God issue before, and which is why I finally made the clue, they are hiding God. That was straight up pressure from the Christian community, said, you have to deal with this so we know where you stand. It's like, okay, sure, why not? And you're absolutely right. In fact, at least half, probably maybe leaning towards 60% of our community are strong Christians. No question. And in fact, it was really weird because there was a Christian convention back in 2018. I didn't go because I'm not Christian enough to attend some of these things. And when they came out of it, I remember watching a thing on stage and they were all saying, and these were some pretty high profile guys saying that they've never seen a recruiting tool for the church as strong as flat Earth. Because it reinforces the whole creation thing. Because if it was, we'll just use the snow globe thing. If it was built, in the snow globe, well, then it was built by someone. It was created by someone, and that's not much of a jump. That is a very, very small leap of faith. And I've gotten so many letters over the years saying that people that fell away from the church are now back into it because of the whole flat Earth thing. Even I can say, my definition of spirituality changed because of flat Earth. Now I don't, attend every Sunday or anything like that anymore. But if anything, I respect the big five religious houses way more than I used to. I think they all have pieces of the same puzzle.
Well, I guess,
you're absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess that's interesting because that kind of plays into, I guess what my question is on this podcast, we talk a lot about concepts like, chaos magic and people willing things into existence and people organizing their lives in ways using these sort of kayfabe structures to basically focus their emotional energy through sort of like a physical manifestation of an idea. And, like for instance, Satanism, where they don't actually literally believe in Satan. They just, their whole thing is basically believing in logic and reason. And their whole idea of worshiping Satan is just kind of like a fake thing that they use to piss people off, more or less. Or like this like trend that's happened recently where a lot of millennial women have become witches, but they don't actually literally believe in witchcraft. It's just sort of, it's a structure to format their lives to feel like they're taking control over things that they don't feel as in control about. So I guess my question is, how much do you literally believe this is literally true? And how much of this is you and these people physically manifesting
I got
the
it.
idea of that you are not insignificant, that you have a purpose, that there's some kind of plan for you, that you're not just like floating meaninglessly through the universe.
Got it. And to answer that, I have to qualify that Flat Earth is very different from any other conspiracy. In fact, it's the only positive conspiracy I know of. Every other conspiracy's got this dark, sinister side to it. Just take your pick. There's so many out there. But with Flat Earth, to answer your percentage question, everybody in the community believes over 90% that it's literally real. And the reason is because everybody hates it. Everybody goes into, first chapter of my last book literally says, there's a qualifier here. It's like you like your life the way it is, don't look at this. Because when you do, you're going to do the same thing that everybody else does. You're going to try to disprove it. You're going to try to, the t-shirt literally reads, I became a flat earther because I tried to shoot it down, or I tried to disprove it, or I tried to debunk it. And the longer you stare at it, and that's a line from a movie too, the longer you stare at it, the worse it gets. The more threads start to unravel, and the whole thing just you can't. And in fact, there's a great line I use, which is, I didn't coin it, I'm sure, which is, can I prove to you the flat earth right now? No. Can I create so much reasonable doubt in the globe that you have nowhere left to turn but the flat earth? Yeah, I can. I can do it all day long. And heavy science people will say, well, that's not enough. Reasonable doubt is enough. I go, yeah, it is. Court of law, every hour of every day, it's enough. And that's how it starts with people. In fact, the biggest part, the scariest part for the scientific community is that because people tear down I didn't convince you or persuade you, or I just put the seed in your head. You tore down the globe yourself. So even if you wanted to go back to the globe, which is why there's all sorts of matrix comparisons, if you wanted to go back to the globe, you can't, because you tore it down. How are you going to build it back up? It'd be different if you're trying to kill my arguments, but if you're the one that convinced yourself that the globe wasn't good anymore, then how are you going to go back to it? So yeah, huge percent, way over 90%. Absolutely, literally believe it.
Is that hard for you? Like, have you lost relationships and friendships, and like, is there a lot of conflict in your life because of this belief?
Not with me, not as much, because I was always on a different path. I don't know why. I was doing weird things. For me, it was like breathing. So, getting kicked out of college for manufacturing explosives on campus, easy. Playing video games for a living, teaching proprietary software, that's not necessarily great. But getting into the flat earth stuff, that it wasn't that bad for me. I know lots of people though. Marriages have gotten torn asunder. The holidays are coming up. Well, it's going to be different this year, but the holidays were really bad, for the last 5 years, because people go to Thanksgiving dinner, and I said, do whatever you do. In fact, it was in the book. Don't go into your Thanksgiving dinner. It's like, hey, Bob, what have you been into lately? Well, let me tell you, I've been in this flat earth thing. And in their head, they absolutely, it's like, the family's going to accept it and everything's going to be fine. And it just goes completely sideways because people don't know what to do. I've got some family members that hate it, some that are on board with it. But it's amazing, which parallels a lot of our community. The majority are either in one camp or the other, but they're in the closet about it. They're not going to weigh in publicly. I've got cousins that are absolutely on board, but we're not going to talk about this. Mostly because of coworkers. Friends and family you can deal with. Coworkers, you got to go to work every day, or at least you used to until this year. So, but people lose people all the time for this, and it's tough. But at the same time, you develop new friends, new community. And I know that sounds cultish, but it's true. You develop these new people, and which is why the conferences and the meetups were so much fun. You go there and there was no judgment. It was this huge release for people. And he was like, yeah, you walked into the room and you knew full well no one was going to give you any crap unless they had a camera in their hands. Yeah,
it's interesting because, in the documentary, your mom seems, she obviously loves you. She cares about you. And, you're her son. And it seems like she kind of humors you, tolerates it, and kind of, I don't know your relationship. I'm just going off what's in the movie.
Sure.
But in the movie, it seems like she's kind of, it's just kind of like that's what Mark's into. And, well, I listen to him because I love him, which is, if there was a disagreement like that between my parents and I, who knows? big life view things are hard with family.
Well, it really varies. There are some some people, it's almost like you might as well, it's really up there along the same lines as, well, we won't go into the real controversial ones, but let's say like religion. It's like going to, your family and saying, oh yeah, by the way, I'm switching from Judaism to Islam or something like that. And again, in your head, totally logical. But in there's like, what are you thinking? And so, yeah, it can get dicey. With my family, like with mom, people documentaries, she had to sign the waiver, of course, beforehand. But like my sister, they wanted my sister to be in it, and my brother-in-law and stuff, they refused. Said it's like, no, we don't. Lots of people just don't want to be on camera. But because they just don't want to, they're afraid. Social media has changed. They don't want to be in the spotlight. There's some people that run from it. They don't want to be under the microscope. And it's like, I don't care. Peer pressure, whatever.
It's interesting too, because I feel like there's in the broader discourse around this topic, and also specifically with you, like a lot of times when you're interviewed, you have a very avuncular nature. You're very, you're a charming guy. You're very nice, affable. You're not like you said, you're not one of the, shadows, mustache twirling, like, you won't believe what they're hiding.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Somebody
exactly.
taping this call.
Right, exactly. And I think, kind of building off what Andrew said earlier, I think I think you are probably a well-intentioned person the majority of the time, but I think that also is a kayfabe personality that you use in order to kind of construct like a crystal cathedral around yourself, built off of the fact that white people don't like to have conflict with each other. Like, I think there's, in a lot of mainstream interviews, people kind of ask you questions and then you give a reply, and that reply 9 times out of 10 is not factual, but they don't follow up on it because the way you deliver it is just kind of like, you're not angry, you're not, you're not yelling, you're not like, you don't understand, the end is nigh. You're just kind of like, well, this is what it is. We live in a snow globe in outer space, and God's watching us, and Truman Show. And then everyone kind of is like, I think in our culture right now, there's an expectation that everyone is going to view what you said as the media idea is that the audience is going to view you and be like, well, this guy's crazy, we don't want to have anything to do with him. And then they don't actually have conflict with you, which then allows this opening for a certain percentage of people who might be inclined to your perspectives, right, to have a permission structure to kind of, for lack of a better term, be converted, in air quotes.
The way you described it makes it sound kind of deliberate, but I can assure you it's completely accidental isn't the word. It's just the way, because I did the whole high stress support thing for as long as I did, no matter how bad the other end of that phone got, I was always, I always had to stay more calm and level-headed. And so when I was always dealing with media, it didn't matter who the media was, I treat them all the same way, which is, look, I couldn't, even if they were attacking, and some did. I mean, nowadays it's tough to get anyone to attack. But even if they were attacking people, in fact, some of my peers would say, why didn't you go after them? It's like, how could I? I go, look, 5 years ago, I was literally one of them. I was on their side of the fence. And so it would be hypocritical for me to yell and scream and do all that. What leg do I have to stand on? So as far as using my personality to recruit people, it's like, no, I don't. I mean, I only have one social media thing, and that's YouTube. And the rest of it, just let's put it this way. And you may have heard this or may not, depending on how many interviews you listen to. If I ever live long enough, cross my fingers this year, to write an autobiography, it'll literally be called Unsolicited. I never had to pick up a phone. That's the weird part. Everything just, I wasn't kidding in the documentary. That part they got right. Again, remember, the documentary team hated us by the end. God, they hated us. You didn't see it in the movie, but the everything kind of came along like an amusement park ride and just showed up in my living room. It's like, get on. It's like, okay, just went the way. I mean, the people that offered me to, this and that and this and that, I didn't have to do anything. I mean, I literally never had to push anything. It just seemed like it was meant to be. So why fight it?
Yeah, it's interesting. We kind of had that same conversation too, where we were deliberating like the moral efficacy of talking to you and giving you a platform. Not that we have a significant platform at all, but it's that idea of part of the reason why Trump has accelerated to the position that he has is due to this same type of, you're expecting the audience to know better, and what you don't realize is every time this person who has these virulent, ignorant beliefs shows up, they're collecting X number of people from the bottom of the barrel. And then over time, that becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think that, you know, it's a complex issue, because I don't know that I have a perfect answer. You know, I don't know what the way of.
I've got one for you. Anytime anybody in the media, I mean, you guys included, doesn't matter what position you take. If you try to take a negative thing against it, yeah, you're absolutely right. You're exposing people to it. I joke and I say every time trolls attack, it's like shooting wooden arrows into a bonfire. Oh, from a distance, there's all sorts of activity and it looks like you're doing stuff, but really all you're doing is feeding the fire. I'm not saying you guys are trolls. You're not, but there are. I mean, I wish I had 1,000 dedicated trolls on YouTube. I've got some, but I wish they were there all the time, and they don't understand. They keep coming. And it's like, look, all you're doing is increasing the metrics. Do you not know how the YouTube algorithms work? And they don't, or they don't care. It's like, all right, fine, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and I, you know, your personal beliefs around coronavirus and stuff notwithstanding, but specifically the flat Earth thing, like on its surface, it's a fairly innocuous belief, right? Like, what does it really mean? I mean, it can be used to other things, and like you said, it has deep roots in other communities, but like, I think what you're doing is dangerous, and I think it's potentially very harmful, but I think there are other beliefs that operate in a very similar way, like the way that racism is spreading, the way that, you know, literal Nazism is coming back into fashion is
I mean, there's some. I mean, yeah.
I mean, from my
perspective,
as a Jewish person whose family came here because of the Nazis, some Nazis is too many fucking Nazis. So, I'm curious what your opinion on that kind of, because you are, you know, one of the more moderately sane seeming people in these communities. Like, I'm curious about your perspective on that issue of like how, like, do you see that as a negative, that this kind of dystopic kind of bubbling up of these ideas is apparently going to happen now?
I had that same question framed a little differently, in that whatever anyone's beliefs on the flat Earth stuff is, disagreements aside, what are your thoughts on the way that, because, you know, what you just described and what we've been talking about with social media and what we started out with the Facebook groups and things like that, you know, obviously the flat Earth movement is not the only thing that has been bolstered and spread by that function. What you're talking about with trolls boosting the metrics, and, you know, the higher engagement rate, the more the video is shown to more people, and, you know, the way that algorithms have spread ideas from being fringe, small groups of people circulating an idea amongst themselves to becoming huge movements across the globe. You know, what are your thoughts on that mechanism in general, and the things that it has?
Yeah, no, I got you. I've got mixed feelings on that, because like there was, I don't know, maybe you saw it or maybe you didn't, on Netflix, the Social Dilemma, which came out just recently, and I saw it going. I went in completely blind. Nobody told me anything about it. And in fact, I may have been one of the first people in my community to see it. And I noticed that when they got to the whole fake news thing, that they singled us out, which surprised me. But then again, it didn't. As a matter of fact, it's weird because that you asked that, because the speech that I'm writing, I haven't even finished it yet, for the conference next week or this week, is called "Did Flat Earth Polarize the World?" Meaning, I had one of my peers recently, or earlier in the year, said, "Are we causing some of this that's happening out there right now? You know, the polarization in all levels. I mean, you guys have been watching it as much as anybody that's been happening this year. It's all over the place. I've never seen a more polarizing year, and how it's going to end." I mean, people said, you know, what's going to happen in 2021? I said, look, I literally can't see past the first week in November at this point, because I don't know what's going to happen. You know, if Trump wins, do all the Democratic cities burn? And if Biden wins, do all the Democrat, you know, do they do a Super Bowl victory thing and the cities still burn? And that's just the beginning of everything else that's happening. Has social media become so focused like a laser that now everything is polarized. You know, if you're not with us, you're against us in just about every aspect that you can think of. I don't know. I mean, did we have something to do with it? Yeah, possibly. Was it inevitable in our civilization? Maybe. I don't know. It seems, and I'm not trying to do the doom and gloom thing here, but it seems like our civilization, I'm a big believer that every civilization runs its course. You know, that you run for a certain number of thousands of years, and then something happens. And then, you know, like a graduating class, you know, you move on, another class has to come in. I mean, older civilizations, you know, all over the place, remnants of them. So, and I think the world survives and our civilization transforms into something else. What's going to happen, you know, to ours, I don't know. Does that sort of kind of give you a foggy view of where I was going with that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's interesting because you know, there's an idea of a utopia, which is obviously this idyllic place where there's no conflict, and then there's a dystopia, which is an idea that is a future that is, you know, oppressive, and, you know, the whatever the negative side of that conflict has won. And then Andrew and I have been talking a lot about this idea that that we've jokingly coined Verhoeven's toupee, which is that we now live in a third thing, which is it started as a utopia that then became, or a dystopia that became self-aware and started parodying itself. And that's what it feels like. It feels like we are in a super intelligent fucking dystopia where everything is the maximalist, stupidest version of itself.
Yeah. A parody
so
of
bizarre.
a parody. Yeah.
It's so fucking weird.
I agree. And I feel bad because, in one sense, because I'm a huge fan of the arts, all forms of the arts, you know, pictures, sculptures, music, dance, and literature. And those engines have been closed, basically. And so everybody's on this hyper tense, paranoid is even the word for it. Everybody's just on pins and needles, and they're on a trigger finger. And I don't know what to make of it. And people are freaking. We got people. I live up on a rural island right now, right up in the middle of nowhere, and there are stores that won't let you in if you wear red, not red with logos, red. Period. It's like, what? It's like, are you kidding? I mean, I've never voted in my life, so I have no skin in the game. But it's like and that's just one instance of so many different things that are happening out there. Yeah, you're right. I don't even recognize what's happening to us now. I mean, the fact that, you know, not that you guys are into the sports thing, but I don't watch NFL, but when I saw the NFL add basically a laugh track, you know, the crowd noise, I'm going, what's happening? I don't recognize this place anymore. So what's going to happen, you know, in the next coming year? I'm kind of at a loss in some ways. It's going to be interesting to watch. It's not going to be boring, that's for sure.
Yeah, like the you know, the Apple News feed feature on my phone has now taken to labeling things from the New Yorker as satire, because people can't. It literally says satire : and then whatever the silly headline is, because we live in such a bizarre, fucked up time that it's not even like, you know, there are certain corners of the internet where these ignorant beliefs are fostered that typically happen because people have a very low understanding of technology, or a very, you know, some sort of lack of understanding about some area of expertise, right? But the fact that everybody now is in a situation where they can't parse reality from satire is so bizarre, which got us talking about this idea of Verhoeven's toupee, obviously named after the director Paul Verhoeven of RoboCop. And
I don't know, Dave. Maybe it's Goro's toupee.
Yeah, maybe it should be Goro's toupee now.
The mob. I mean, up until this year, the mob didn't scare me because it was like, mob. Pff. Now the mob worries me because the mob can be like what you guys are saying. I mean, the mob can be created so quickly with so few words. I mean, the news. That's the one thing that social media has done now, and which is you can create. I mean, 6 billion smartphones in the world. Think of the narrative you can push. And even if just slivers of narratives, you've seen it weave through, you can take so many people with those waves. And I mean, they absolutely, like in the rumor mills, the telephone game. I mean, they get morphed and twisted to where they're absolute fact within a day of getting from point A to point B, and they take people on all sorts of freaking rabbit holes. And it worries me in some aspects because of the speed it happens. It's everything. That's the one common thread that I've seen over the last 5-10 years is the speed just keeps ramping up faster and faster and faster to where I don't even think the authorities can react quick enough if something bad decided to happen. Really, really bad.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a major concern. Just on, I mean, you look at stuff like Pizzagate, where it's just like,
oh yeah. Now, to be fair, and I did a rant on this. What happened with Pizzagate, and I've never been. In fact, the 2-3 interviews ago, somebody was really pushing the whole QAnon. Who was it? It was Wired. Somebody big. They were asking about QAnon. They were asking me, it's like, oh, what's your opinion on QAnon? I'm like, I honestly don't think much of them because the Pizzagate thing just completely fanned out. But to be fair, and I don't want to be dark necessarily, but come on, child prostitution exists. We all know that, and we know that rich people, really powerful, evil idiots, decide to do horrible things. So, is it potentially feasible? Sure, but there's a big jump between awful people creating the stuffing from the movies Hostel to just about every member of public American government and some foreign governments, all linked in this web that they're all doing the same thing. And that's the part that drove me insane. Is like, really, you're just gonna link up all these public figures, and all of a sudden, boom, this underground thing.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about QAnon, and I find it very disturbing how virulent that strain of ignorance is. And I don't really know why anyone would believe that, because it's so blatantly just like trolls from fucking 4chan, like messing with people, and then it gets telephoned out like 2 or 3 rings. Like it's so blatantly
and the more vague
that
you are, it's like a freaking fortune cookie. They put it. You're right. They put it out there, and then all it takes is one person to make the leap, and then it takes off like a forest fire.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know the QAnon thing. No, I don't. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Do I think that QAnon is? I'm a huge, Deep Throat has to be validated at some point. And it's like, yeah, QAnon was basically a newer version of Deep Throat, but nobody, there was nothing behind it. There's nothing backing it. So no.
I'm curious about some of your other opinions on.
Ask.
Yeah, on various conspiracy theories. Moon landing, yay, nay?
Oh my God, no. I could send you. In fact, I could probably send it to you in the back channel. No. The American. There's so many. No, not even close. The American moon landing was fabricated from every space program. Fabricated from minute one. The Americans, no, never, ever went to the moon. And again, I could spend an entire episode just covering just photographs and brilliant. But to be one real quick one, look at any photo from the moon and tell me why the shadows are going in multiple directions. There's only one light source, the sun, 93 million miles away.
JFK, was he assassinated by a shadowy cabal, or was it a lone gunman? Or
JFK killed by a lone gunman, who was in turn killed by a lone gunman, which is like a unicorn being killed by an alien at that point. No, but that's one of those greater good things for me. I was a big believer, and people don't like when I say it, that JFK had to die. And he was a long-term problem. People don't realize, like, when was he killed? He was killed in 63. I'm playing this from the government side, which is, okay, what happens in 64? He's reelected. Short of Jesus, nobody's going to beat him in 64. He's going from 64 to 68, then Bobby goes 68, 72, 72, 76. And that point, you may have even forgiven Ted by that point. Because at the bare minimum, you're looking at 16 years of the Kennedys. And he's already a pain in the ass. Nope. Sorry. Yeah, he was not bucking this. He was not bucking the system. He was never going to be do it for that long. The last president with any power was Eisenhower. Period. Everybody else is just a puppet. Next.
What is your feeling on the whole like David Icke lizard people running the government?
I used that in my clues when I wasn't making a nod to David Icke, but I literally said in the first paragraph of my clues, I said, I've got friends that are convinced that the royal family is made up of lizard people. And then I come back at them. I say, yeah, but what about flat Earth? They go, get the hell out of here. I was like, what? How can you justify both those things? No. I mean, but to be fair, do I think that there are potentially older species that of humanity, humanoid, that survived previous cataclysms in this world? Sure. Why the hell not? I mean, there are sunken cities off of Japan, sunken cities off of India, Puma Punku, the Bosnian pyramids, the real pyramids, Bimini Road. I mean, there's all sorts of potentially older civilizations that were out there. And do I think there were survivors? Yeah, why not? Now, my only problem with the lizards is eventually, kind of like Bigfoot, they have to die. And you can't tell me, kind of like vampires, which is why I don't believe in vampires. If a lizard person died somewhere, just a random lizard person, they were found by someone, you can't tell me that you're absolutely seamless in covering all that up. So no. Nope. Hey, credit to David Icke. He's out there doing his thing, but I'm not a huge fan.
I'm assuming you're not a big fan of Bigfoot then?
No, but the whole cryptozoology thing has always been fascinating to me because science is one of the things that bugs me about science is they never apologize. It's like, it's always a myth until we find one, science. And then it's like, no, then it's science. So the giant panda, myth, giant anaconda, the giant squid, which still have never gotten one of the big ones. A billy ape was found in, a 6 foot species of chimpanzee found in 2015. Took them that long to find this thing. Why? Because they were really good at hiding from people. They hate people. They just run as fast as they can. So is there possibly another primate out there that's escaping us? Sure. Why the hell not? I'll even throw in one more. I'm a big believer, I coined this one, of the Goliath cobra. I believe there's a species of snake out there that's really big and really fast and really deadly. Every once in a while, an explorer will run into it. It's like, oh, wow, let me get my notebook. That's it. It never gets to report it because it gets killed.
I mean, living out in the woods in the Pacific Northwest, maybe you are Bigfoot.
No, but look, I'm not going to. Well, I'll throw one more because you probably wouldn't bring it up. Loch Ness Monster, great example, right? Loch Ness Monster. Are there plesiosaurs or some sort of dinosaurs swimming around in the lakes of Loch Ness and Lake Michigan and other places? And you'd say no. It's like, why not? Well, because they've been dead for at least 100 million years. Okay, then I show you the coelacanth fish. Science hates it. Science hates me bringing up the coelacanth fish. Convinced they are absolutely all willing to bet the frickin' farm this thing was extinct for at least 70 million years. It's a rather unattractive fish with a bunch of extra, they got the fossil records of this thing. And then one was caught by the British government off of South Africa, and then another one off of Madagascar and Mozambique. Then finally National Geographic started swimming around with them. The point is, it's like, okay, then I come back and say, is there anything swimming around in Loch Ness? And you'd say, well, no. And I go, really? Because the fish is right over there. And, just because you couldn't catch it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. There you
go. What are your thoughts on, Aliens, Area 51,
The Greys.
Well, Greys, baby!
The Groom Lake facility, that's not a big secret. I mean, that's a wonderful military base, and kind of like the one in Dulce, New Mexico and others. Look, we have secret military bases. That's why they're a secret. Not a big shock there. Now, are there aliens there? Are they reverse engineering technology? Two things quick to look at. One would be, people think the greatest, in fact, we'll keep it short. The greatest UFO sighting of all, they say, was it Roswell, New Mexico? No, it was 1561 Nuremberg, Germany. Plain and simple. Full, granted it was before photographs and radio and everything, 1561, but these two giant armadas on a beautiful April sunny day, not a cloud in the sky, just started hammering on each other for a solid hour. And to where, people are eating their Schnitzengluben and toast or whatever, and they got the sketch artists and they drew the whole thing out and put it in the newspaper, but they had no scientific reference for it. They thought it was a religious event because there was no science fiction back in 1561. So, and they look for the wood carvings. It's a wonderful wiki entry. People just gloss over it and they say, oh no, it was sun dogs. It's like, really? Really? Sun dogs? No. What else? do I think again, that goes with the other thing. Do I think aliens exist? Yeah, I do, but I don't think they're from Mars and Jupiter and Venus and all that. I think they're just older versions of us. There was a British guy I was watching years ago, way before I was into flat Earth, and he goes, if next time you get a chance, he goes, you want to see some weird stuff? It was just the end of the interview. It caught my attention. He goes, grab some night vision binoculars, start looking up at night. I'm going, ooh, that sounds like a wager. So I went on Amazon, bought some night vision binoculars, all built by the Russians. Weird. And I started looking up, and I was going, wow. It's like they live, like, a whole bunch of satellites. You're like, wow. And then they start moving in ways that they shouldn't be moving, a lot of them. And I was I was on my back in the snow in Colorado watching these things for, God, 3 or 4 years until I got into flat Earth. But I think they're older versions of us. Next.
One of the things that I'm a little curious about, that was kind of my just like rough list of the actual conspiracy theories. But one of the things I'm curious about is the way the documentary ends is this kind of, we're going to take these people's kind of latent interest in science and the world around them and try and nurture a greater understanding, or nurture a world where these ideas can be talked out in a non-confrontational way. What did you think about that?
Talking about the end of Behind the Curve?
Behind the Curve, yeah. I'm just curious, did you feel that kind of the end of that thesis?
Oh, you mean that they were trying to open up the dialogue between science? Yeah. Well, by the way, you were the first person to ever focus on that from the documentary. Nobody else caught that. Everybody else focused on the laser thing with Jaron at the end. But you're right. Just towards the end, they were trying to say that science, can't we all get along? Science, and you're right. There should be this open dialogue. You're absolutely right. And it would be lovely if that was the case, except that when you are at a certain level of education, especially in the physical sciences, almost without exception, a master's degree or higher in any physical science, and if you're just astrophysics, forget it, they won't talk about it. They won't even address it. I could not get, the closest I got, and they wouldn't talk about this in the documentary, was there was a physicist out of Georgetown. A German television company calls me up and they said, oh, we got this guy in Georgetown. What we're going to do is because physicists or scientists in general, once you get up to a certain level, for whatever reason, your vocabulary just starts dropping. You're so tunnel vision that you're focused on your topic, which is fine. And so they didn't want us talking to each other. They say, okay, we'll record your stuff and then we'll play it back to him, and then we'll just pass back and like notes through class. We'll pass back these video things. And he got my first series of questions and he just stopped. He said, he goes, nope, we're not doing this. And he folded, and that was it. And Germans went home angry. But we find that time and time again. That was the closest really anyone's ever got. We get a couple physicists here and there, but usually it's a religious angle. We get some physicists that are also religious, and which is kind of a weird mix. But the dialogue that you're talking about that should happen, they won't drop them. Short answer. Most scientists will think it's absolutely beneath them to even address it. And plus, remember, there's only 3 media physicists out there right now in media. Neil deGrasse Tyson, far and away, number 1. Brian Cox from England, Michio Kaku from Japan. Neil won't debate anybody about anything ever. He's a stage performer. I get it. Bill Cosby and Sinbad all in one. Great. Brian Cox is too arrogant because he's British. And Michio Kaku just gets angry because he thinks you're immediately a conspiracy guy. Well, once you take those 3 guys out, that's it. Then who are you going to talk about in any media platform? With the exception of Bill Nye, who is not a scientist. He has a bachelor's in mechanical. He's an actor, I know, because he's from Seattle. I used to watch him on local television. He was on a local comedy troupe.
Weren't you interviewed though by Australian TV where they had a NASA scientist who discussed things with you? Yeah,
but he wasn't one of the top. Well, yeah. Every once in a while you'll get one of those guys, like they'll put him as a reference point, but it's very, very short. Very, very, very short. That segment I'm glad you watched that. Not a lot of people watch that one. That segment was less than 10 minutes, 12 tops. Every once in a while we'll get somebody, but they're usually on stage just to back up the talking heads, the Ron Burgundys, if they can help it.
Right, yeah. So in your mind, the better way to foster that would be what? to a long form discussion, or
if anything, just to it's again, I don't really have a good answer other than it's like, look, we're not here to destroy your whole, well, probably the bad way to say that. We're not a threat to you personally, so just talk to us. But again, it's so, to them, I mean, I've run into them. I mean, to them, it is offensive, especially somebody in the physical sciences, that anyone would even begin to. Why not? We're talking about flat Earth. That is the knee-jerk reaction to the whole flat Earth thing. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. Why would you ever look at something like that and multiply that? Amp that up, turn that up to 11 for anyone in the physical sciences. They just won't do it. They just won't talk to us. I mean, not on any, in fact, the closest, I had a couple serious, 1, 2, 3, at least half a dozen that got a hold of me, but they said they would only talk to me anonymously, which of course probably a bait anyway, because like, how do I know who you are? You say you're blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you got to give me your name. I don't care if you're on video, you got to at least give me your name. It's like, nope, I won't, because they don't want to be that guy in the room. And I've said this on different things. It's like, the problem with the physicists is you don't want to treat it like a boxing match. You don't want to be, because the boxing match perceptions change. And if you don't knock out flat Earth in the first round, they're not looking at flat Earth anymore. They're looking at you. They're looking, it's like, why haven't you knocked him out yet? What's wrong with you? What are you doing wrong? And of course, remember, if you probably have friends in the academia world, when you get up to a certain level, it's all about being published and, being in your peer groups. You don't want to be ostracized for any reason. And those groups, like cliques in high school, they will kick you out in a second. It's like, you did a debate on the radio with a flat earther? Yeah, we're not talking to you anymore. And there goes, 8 years of your life. Ugh.
Do you feel like members of the flat Earth community would actually be open to those discussions? Like, do you think that would go over well if a scientist came into, let's just say, I know you're not on there, but let's just say a Facebook group, and a scientist came in there in a non-confrontational way and was like, hey, I'm Joe Squibbity-Doo, and I'm an astrophysicist, and I'm guy. Here. Yeah, exactly. And I'm here to answer any of the questions that anybody has. Do you think that would be received well?
Yeah. No, we've been begging. Oh God, I mean, literally for 5 years, we've been just begging anybody to come talk to us about this stuff. The higher credentials, the better. And it's just so tough to where, we've done some dumb things, I admit, stalking astronauts and trying to confront Neil outside of stages and stuff like that. We've been desperate to try to create these dialogues. It's just tough to do. Maybe by design, maybe not. I don't think it's a conspiracy. The sheer lack of scientists in the media, the mainstream media group, makes it really, really tough. But Neil Tyson, I shouldn't say we pick on him as much, but we'd love to talk to him, and he just won't do it. The closest we got there was Joe Rogan set up a thing where he got Neil to say, oh yeah, I'll do a debate, and we'll do it in like 3 weeks. Debate, not with me, with a guy out of Thailand named Eric Dubé. And of course, he fell through because Neil's like, nah. He just said he was going to do it because he didn't want to look bad on TV with Joe.
It's interesting. I don't know that I fully believe that. I feel like the argument that you're presenting again of like, we're totally open to having these conversations and we definitely want experts, again, is that same permission structure that we were mentioning earlier of like presenting the idea as non-threatening, using the fact that you're very affable and a nice guy. I mean, I can vouch right now. Like, I don't have any hard feelings towards you. I would hang out with you. I'm a comic book guy. You're a comic book guy. In the documentary, there's a poster of Alex Ross's Kingdom Come above your computer.
Oh my God. You were the first one. By the way, thank you, by the way. I'm really surprised Alex Ross did not email me or shoot me a thing. Nobody else caught. I've got framed. I got one right there. Alex Ross. I was a huge Alex Ross fan. And so, but sorry, to your point, it's not just me, but that is more of the point, isn't it? If they won't even come to me, then what else do I have to do? I mean, I am as consistent as anybody. I am nice. I am, again, affable. It's like, look, talk to me. I'm easy to talk to. If you don't want to talk about this, let's talk about this. I'll talk about anything. And if they won't talk to me, yeah, then it's a tough sell. I've done everything I can at this point.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't buy that.
What, the science won't talk to us?
Yeah, no, there's plenty of opportunities for that to have happened, and I've seen videos where that happens. And I think a lot of members of your community, their identities are wrapped around this idea of the Earth is flat, and that that the separation of those two would be too painful in that way. Honestly, I think the way that the like arc of this community movement, whatever you want to call it, is probably fatigue. Like, I think it's probably people, if it does, maybe you guys will reshape the world, and maybe in 15 years, I'll be trying to come onto your podcast to be the crazy conspiracy theorist about how the Earth is round. And I'm like, Mark, do me a solid, man. I've got to promote this new thing I'm doing, or what? I don't know, whatever. Like, maybe you guys will win, and I'll be the crazy person, like the Twilight Zone episode.
I don't think it's a winning or losing thing. And again, yes, of course, for a lot of people in the community, there is a feeling of not necessarily just belonging, but yeah, there is a sense of purpose. What Andrew was saying earlier, where, especially in the religious side, remember, if half the community is Christian, then yes, it's like, oh my God, you mean this world wasn't an accident? It was built for me? Sure. But at the same time, they can't believe the one without the other. There is no separating the two. I mean, again, most of the experiments, in fact, none of the clues, I had any experiments to do whatsoever. You go through the clues, there's no math. It's all connect the dots. It was everybody else in the community. It's like, check this out. Look at this. Talk to this guy. And it's like, holy smokes, I never would have thought about all this stuff.
Well, I think, it's interesting that you're the way that you're talking about this, because, I feel like there's a potentially different perspective on the things that you're going through right now. I take a slightly different viewpoint on this than Dave. I don't think that it's necessarily impossible that you could get somebody in the science community to talk to you, but I actually, just listening to what you're saying and from looking around, I actually do think there's probably validity to the idea of the academic elitism of the scientific community, of essentially not wanting to validate the flat Earth movement with by having these discussions. I don't know what I necessarily think about that. I don't know if that's the right thing, if them refusing to validate is the right thing, or if it is an academic elitism that is just furthering this cycle. But either way, it's interesting to me, because an alternate read of the situation from what you're saying is, don't you feel like there's a possibility that because of that very fact, because of the fact that nobody will talk to you, nobody will interact with these ideas, that you're basically being allowed to operate in a vacuum where none of these things are being challenged? Like at the end of the day, if it was possible, if somebody wanted to go out of their way to do this, somebody could just put you into a spaceship and go to space and like just prove it once and for all. But nobody's going to do that, because the idea is absurd and they would never spend the amount of money.
Why would you put a flat earther into space? Although that has been suggested countless thousands of times in the comment section. It's like, put Mark into space.
But it won't ever happen, because it would be expensive. And like I said before, I feel like nobody would want to validate the idea by doing it.
They don't want to lower themselves to because again, it is, I've heard the word. I mean, it's offensive to them. It's like, what are you talking about? I don't know if I'd call it academic elitism, other than, I suppose it's the only definition there is, that once you get up to a certain level, it's like, what do you mean flat Earth? The thing that was, debunked to me when I was in grade school? Why would I ever talk about that? But at the same time, putting me in space thing, oh no, I had to discount that a long time ago. I've had to come up with other things, which may have been one of your questions, which is there anything, you probably would have heard this in interviews, is there anything that can be done to prove to me, can shoot me down? It's like, anything you can change your mind so I can go back to my normal life. And I'd like to preface that with like, yeah, I'd love for someone to do that, because I didn't want to do this. Nobody did. I didn't want to do flat Earth. I wasn't kidding in the documentary. That part was true. Absolutely did not want to do flat Earth. There are days I do not, I don't like, I can't even read the comment section for the most part, because it's just, oh God, there's so many terrible things. But at the same time, could something be done to prove it to me? Yeah, I could, but it hasn't. and I've given people some really, really bare bones, cheap options to do it.
Do you think that if you, because we see this a lot, a couple months ago, like literally the dude who like started QAnon came out and admitted it and was like, I started this, it's being run by this pig farmer in the Philippines now, and
It wasn't from 4chan?
inevitable. No, it was like the 4chan spun off into 8chan, but then the guy who spun off 8chan decided that it got too big for its own good, and he decided to shut it down. But the co-owner, the guy that was hosting it, because they couldn't get any American server to host it, so this server in the Philippines was hosting it, and they had to have this guy in the Philippines to sort of like validate residency there. So he, in effect, he kind of co-owned this new version of 8chan. And then whenever the guy decided he wanted to shut it down, the other guy was like, well, I'm going to keep running it. So now it's owned by this guy in the Philippines who lives on a pig farm, and his dad's like a pig farmer. And this guy basically came out and was like, I created this whole thing, and it was taken over by this group of people who all they just make up stuff and post it. And, this is a whole other topic for another episode. But when he did that, inevitably, obviously, people didn't go, oh, never mind then. They just said like, this guy's lying. So to that effect, if somebody was like, get into my spaceship, and they flew you up into space, and just hypothetically, and they showed you and they proved that it was round, and then you came back down and you were like, I was wrong. We were wrong.
I'd quit tomorrow.
Would you? But what I'm asking is, in the flat Earth community, do you think that they would listen to you, or do you think that you would become an enemy? Do you think that they would say somebody got to you? They took you up.
I don't know the percentage, but yeah, you're right, because there would be some people that would discount it. However, given how I can explain things and boil it down, I think I could get most of them to believe it. Again, if it was true. But the only way they'd send me up there was with a government type thing, and I'm pretty sure the waivers wouldn't be fun to read. But yeah, there would be some people that wouldn't buy it and call me an enemy. Depends again. So much of it comes down to the rumor mill. I mean, if I came down and it's like, look, here's it, here's my video. It depends what evidence I had, right? Here's my video. Here's my people I was with. Here's the whole mission, blah, 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 the telemetry, blah, blah, blah. But all it takes is one person to say, oh no, I have this document. I mean, I had rumors. I'm not kidding you. I had rumors literally start. We didn't talk about this. Well, I was talking about it a little bit in the documentary, where there were guys that some of my rivals, because there's rivals in Flat Earth, that said I was a government agent. And swore up and down. I mean, back in 2015, and those rumors are still dogging me to today. They were made by people that all they had to do was put the rumor out there. And again, the saying goes, if you repeat it enough times, you will get people to go along with it. And I still get people that call me shill, and people that don't even know what the definition of the word shill is, and they swear, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a hit and miss thing. Depends how it was presented.
I'm a little curious about your everyday life. Your everyday kind of like, do you make a living off of your speaking engagements and touring? Do you have a job? Like, what is the everyday routine of Mark Sargent?
Well, okay, before 2020, let's do it before 2020.
Right. Yeah.
This year, all bets are freaking off. When I got into this back in 2015, I was in between startup companies, so I had time on my hands, and I had some money from some real estate things that I had done. But yeah, the money started coming in, but it was just enough to get by. It was weird. It was like, not to use a comparison, like manna from heaven type of thing. But I was getting, like a book publisher from London called me up and said, "Oh, can we turn your clues into a book?" Okay, what do I have to do? Hey, can we do a radio show thing? Okay, sure. And then but yeah, it's the day-to-day life, making videos on a regular basis, watching videos, talking to people, answering emails, and then traveling. Last year, again, traveled way more than I thought I was going to, of doing public speaking things. Some were paid, some weren't. I'll do a public speaking thing if I get my hotel and airfare paid for. I didn't care. It just seemed like the thing to do. If it seemed like a cool conference, sure, why the hell not? I did one in Stockholm, Sweden. It wasn't even a flat Earth conference. They had me open just to throw a wrinkle into it. I go, why am I here? When I got there, it's like, oh, we want to mix things up a bit, shake them up. Like in the first hour, I go, okay, let's do this.
You mean like it was like a Macworld conference, and then you're just out there being you live in a snow globe, and then they're like, and now check out the printer that we're gonna.
No, it was what was it called? The something festival in Stockholm. Crap. I could look it up real fast. It was a one word thing, the something festival. Anyway, but it was like a forward thinking, technology festival. Right?
Oh, I've seen that interview, and it's where the guy you were talking to had a goatee, and you had I've seen that interview.
Yeah. They were, in fact, that was even weirder. We were the only two Americans, right? So they bring in he was a journalist, and they brought him on to talk to me on stage because they didn't initially. They were going to let me just go solo. I thought, we better buffer this a bit. So they brought him on, and when we did that. I'm sorry. So I was paid a little bit for that one, but it was like, oh hell, you're flying me into Stockholm? Sure, why the hell? I've never been to Stockholm. I got to go to places that I never would have gone before. So yes, it does make, well, at least before this year, it does make a living, but at the same time, I wasn't in it for the money. I was just in it to see where it was going to take me. I mean, if there was money involved, sure, great, why not? I mean, I told people, there were producers swimming around for years. And of course, everything just collapsed in 2020. But I told everyone, I said, look, I go, whatever contract shows up on my desk first, I'm signing. I go, as long as you don't make Flat Earth look ridiculous. In fact, the only thing I did turn down one, The Amazing Race. That, the silly.
They wanted you to be on The Amazing Race?
They were going to do an all internet, all podcast Amazing Race with nothing but hard, like PewDiePie and Shane and guys like that. And they called me up and they said, okay, can we do a team thing? And I said, I'll do it, but I didn't know. I'd never watched an actual season of The Amazing Race. So I watched like the entire season 31 or something like that. Cause they said, well, it's a good season. I watched it. I was going, really? I go, fine. I go, well, I don't want to get knocked out in the first two rounds. I go, because it's all staged, right? You watch the show and you realize through the editing, it's like, oh my God, there's no competition here. And I said, you're not going to kill Flat Earth in the first two rounds. And they were still going to do it, but they didn't want to use me because they thought I was confrontational. I was like, okay, because I compared it to professional wrestling. I probably shouldn't have. But the thing was, the first line when they talked to me was, people don't know this about shows like that. They go, can you go for an entire month without using the internet? I go, what do you mean? They go, well, we shoot this whole thing and we don't want anyone showing up at the sets, the remote locations. No phones, no internet, no emails, no nothing. You are in total blackout mode. You get television and television only. And I go, well, I can be fine because I'm older. But I go, you're gonna ask Shane Dawson and PewDiePie to go off the internet for a month? Are you insane? I go, these guys make a lot of money. I go, they're going to ask for compensation. They go, yeah, we're not going to pay compensation. I go, good luck. And that whole season just collapsed. They couldn't do it. Anyway, sorry.
Were you going to be a solo contestant, or was it going to be
No, it was going to be me and a member of my choosing. And in the end, it was funny. I go, the guy that was built for game shows was the guy in the documentary, Nathan Thompson. The guy that did golf balls and his hammer and did mental gym. Oh my God, he's built for a freaking game show. It's going, he just crushed this show. And I said, he's the guy. And so they went with him and Matt Long, who you didn't probably see, just big jock tennis guy, ex-semi-pro tennis guy. And those are the two guys. And we were going to have a Flat Earth team. So,
I mean, if you got to pick the person, Mark, why didn't you pick Patricia Steele?
Patricia Steele. And by the way, thank you, for saying Patricia Steele, because that's the name she should have gone with.
Oh, wait, what is... Oh, shit, I said her name, her last name wrong.
No, it's fine. Her name should be Patricia Steele, but it's actually Patricia Steer.
Oh, my bad.
No, it's fine. No, everybody, I know, it's like, look, Steele's a better name. Patricia Steele, it's a great name. No, okay. The reason why you don't go... No, I unfortunately had to tell... They asked about Patricia, and I go... Because they wanted a girl initially, and there was only one girl in the documentary. That was her. And I go, well, you can't use her. And they go, why? I go, because she's not really built to do things. She's built really to stand and read things. And I mean, seriously, she wilts like a freaking flower. We did a National Geographic thing down in Southern California. Granted, it was getting up around 8:90 or so. And she was just standing. She wasn't even doing anything. She was just standing, and she only made it a couple hours. And then she basically had to go to the car and crank up. She burned like half a tank of gas on air conditioning, sat in the car, and then they finally said, okay, just go home, go back to the hotel. So they sent her back to the hotel, and we continued on. No, she couldn't. No, she has no.
How did you feel about the way that the documentary depicted your relationship with her?
It was fine. I mean, they needed, I knew what they were going for. I mean, they hit all the right notes when they were doing it. It's like, oh, we got to do some sort of romance intrigue. I mean, you'd be amazed when I would go do things in meetups and public speaking things when I'd say, okay, questions from the audience. Out of the first 5 questions, one of them was going to be about her. Guaranteed. It's like, so what happened with Patricia? It's like, oh God, no. It's fine. It was fine. Patricia and I were fine, but it was never going. We were completely different people. It was a weird relationship to begin with, and
was it an official? Did you guys actually date? Was it an official relationship?
Oh yeah. She flew up to Seattle, and she was thinking of buying a house. She's got money, and was the whole 9 yards. We kept it secret for like a whole year, because for her, public impression was a big thing. And then we got in a fight down in Denver at the conference, third conference. Yeah, third conference. Because Logan Paul, you know who that guy is?
Oh my God, did Logan Paul steal her from you?
No.
Oh God, that would have been the icing on the cake.
No, good Lord, no. She's got more clout. Plus, she's twice his age.
Hey man, love knows no bounds, baby.
I suppose, but no. What happened was we had this mystery celebrity guest that was going to be at the conference, and the promoter, Robbie Davidson, was told, absolutely do not tell anybody until we tell you it's okay, and we'll do some promotions, blah blah blah. And then we didn't know. We were all guessing, and we were guessing like Will Smith. We're guessing all these high level people. And then somebody comes to me 12 hours before the conference starts, like that night, and says, oh yeah, by the way, it's Logan Paul. And most of the people in our community are older than, he was like 23 or 22 at the time, and didn't even know who the hell he was. I knew who he was. I did enough internet research. It's like, I'm going, it can't be him. It freaking can't be him. I go, why? I go, he's a freaking troll. He's an internet troll. All he does is troll people. I go, he's only here to trolls. No, he's totally legit. I'm going, no, he's not. No. And just like, oh yeah, by the way, he's going to be on stage just before you, Mark. I'm just going, what the hell he is? And that was it. I left. I got in a plane and I left without telling anybody. And Patricia kind of got bent out of shape because, she does the award show, and I was the co-host for the award show. And so she got really, really mad about that.
Was this a Flat Earth award show?
Oh yeah. It's 4 years running now.
What are they called? The Flatties? The Earthies?
That's exactly what they're called.
They're called the Flatties?
Yeah, the Flatties. Oh yeah, for all sorts of stuff. Best video editing, best blah 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 content, junior awards, you name it, the whole 9 yards.
What is a junior flatty? Is it like something you give a kid of like?
Yeah, under 18. Yeah.
For what? Like I made a video and I'm 19 or 16 or whatever, and the Earth is flat, and then you get nominated for a flatty?
Well, I mean, it's got to be a decent video, but yeah, absolutely.
Has a TikTok video ever won a flatty?
It who?
Has a TikTok video ever won a flatty?
No, because I'll be perfectly honest. I didn't even know what TikTok was until this year. So I was completely off the radar. That was off the radar for me. But anyway, so no, Patricia and I are fine, but we had our falling out stuff. And so, but the again, watching we watched the premiere together up in Toronto at the film festival. And, they painted her in a soft light. I was really happy for her because they let her off the hook. They didn't torture her the way they did like other people. They didn't take stings at her the way they could have with other people, which was fine. So, but Patricia could never be on The Amazing Race. Never. Never. Sorry, Patricia, if you're listening. But she knows this. I mean, you watch The Amazing Race, like even if it's staged, you still have to run and do a few, you've got to go through quite a few gyrations.
Hurdles, whatever, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not exactly easy. I mean, I wouldn't even be a big fan of it. So,
man.
I feel like I need to restate this question for the sake of semantics. So going back to the idea of the kayfabe of it, and this idea of the flat Earth movement as this sort of emotional structure for finding significance in the universe. You've talked about things, both in this interview as well as interviews that I've seen with you, and whether it's you talking about that idea of using it to find significance or uncovering the secret that we aren't just meaningless nothings floating through the universe. Here and there you say these things that almost slightly start to, at least in my interpretation, they slightly start to dog whistle at your self-awareness of certain things that you're doing and certain tactics that you're using. In one interview, you talked about the reason why people, I think it was that interview that was in Germany, where you talked about the reason why people gravitate to flat Earth. And you talked about this idea that the reason why people gravitate towards it is because it's easy to believe in this. It's easier to believe in this than it is to believe in other things. And
that's a great point, which is we have created a model of the universe which is easier to explain than the solar system model. Way easier.
But that sounds so, at least to me listening to that, like right now, that sounds so self-aware that you realize that you have built this following based on this sort of manipulative omission of information. You're willingly offering up that the reason why people resonate with this is because it's easier to understand. And what you said earlier, where you basically said that the reason why you got into this and the reason why you went so far down this rabbit hole was not necessarily because of money or whatever, but was because you wanted to see how far it goes. And all of these things to me, I mean, at least like I said, from my interpretation, these all sound like pseudo self-aware admissions of the fact that this whole thing is just like it's just almost this like existential improv game that you're playing. So I guess to restate my question from earlier, but make it more pointed, before I asked you what percentage do flat earthers believe that this is literally true and how much of it is this sort of like chaos magic emotional belief structure that helps them focus their energy into something to give back energy to them. But I will restate that question and say, because you said 90%, but you said believers believe 90%. And I almost feel like maybe that was a little bit of a dodge. How much do you literally believe this is true versus it's a thing? It's like I said, it's like almost this existential improv game you're playing where you're just seeing where it goes and allowing it to serve as this structure for helping you focus your...
For me, over 90%, but it wasn't that way in the beginning. And I've said this on I don't know how many interviews. When I first made the clues, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. When I put my name and my phone number and my bank accounts and everything online, I did everything you weren't supposed to do. And I said, okay, I can't solve this riddle anymore, which is the globe. I think it's flat. Come at me. And I was, sitting in my condo in Boulder, Colorado with some wine and some popcorn saying, okay, let's see what happens. And I really expected some academic to call me up and say, okay, here's where you went wrong. You forgot to carry the 2 and it's over here and you can go back to your life now. And they didn't. And so for the first 6 months, the percentage just kept going up and up and up because the people that were calling me were, especially the subject matter experts, were blowing my mind because they were throwing me ideas that I'd never even thought about. And they all kept saying the same thing, whether they were engineers or pilots or all branches of the military, all those guys, and saying, it's not crazy. Here's why. Take this little chunk of information and go with it. So by the end of 2015, I was absolutely all in. In fact, even before the end of 2015. Because I couldn't go the other way. There was nothing to go back to. Again, sort of like the Matrix or the rabbit hole you can never climb out of. Once you get into it, first paragraph of the book, I go, stop reading if you don't want to go very far, because there's a tipping point, and once you get past that, you cannot backpedal. from it. And that's where I was. Now, can I be shot out of the water and disproven by something down the road, maybe, that exists? Sure, why not? But until that happens, I'm absolutely all in. Rob Skiba, one of our guys, he's a Christian Bible literalist. He was fond of saying that he was 98% confirmed, but that was only because he was holding 2% out just in case he was wrong. That way he could, and he put in his presentations, he blamed me, April 15th, 2015, the day Mark Sargent ruined my life. And he would use that, it kind of like an excuse, but people saying, oh, you're all in. No, I mean, I'm the same. I followed the same path that everybody else in the community did, which is they went down, they tried to destroy Flat Earth. Everybody tries to destroy it. Nobody. I mean, the quickest person I ever saw flip from the globe to flat, she was a woman in California. She was an Uber driver, and she flipped in 20 minutes. Some woman that drove one of our people to a meetup. Most people take a couple weeks. Some people take longer. I mean, I took 9 months, but by the time I got there, yeah. How could you not? I mean, you're not going to commit money and resources to something that isn't an official religion unless you actually buy into it. And that's what everyone's doing. I mean, people driving, like to the conference, the first one you saw in the documentary, people were driving hours. Everyone on the East Coast, most of them drove for some reason, to this conference. You don't do that unless you're buying into it. Otherwise, it's just some fun little club. But the people that I'm going to be seeing here this week, these are people that I've been seeing a lot of them have been seeing for the last 5 years. I mean, they are diehards, absolute diehards. And why wouldn't they be? They've traveled to other countries to do experiments. They've, done lectures and different things. They've done tons of mainstream media interviews. Nobody's faltered. Not a single one. You would expect there's some chinks in the armor. I haven't seen them.
Are you not able to sort of academically correlate the two sort of established pieces of information that we've discussed? The one being this sort of romantic idea of you putting out your information on the internet and kicking back and then nobody disproving you, with this other thing we've talked about, that the academics they just refuse to talk to you for whatever reason that is up for conjecture. And we've talked about but this idea that you, like I said before, that you might just, the reason why nobody has disproven you is because you're sort of operating in this self-insulated vacuum where these people won't talk to you. The people who will talk to you aren't necessarily equipped to disprove you. Like I'm not, and not because like even that NASA guy in that interview that you did on Australian TV, like, yeah, he worked at NASA, but I don't think anybody in this world wakes up in the morning and is like, today I'm going to have to disprove the idea that the earth is flat, so I better come with my data. Like, I don't think anybody is ever doing that. And
no. And you're right. There is a vacuum side to it, and people have called it an echo chamber many times. Yeah, absolutely. Not our fault. I mean, there's nothing else I can do to drag people into our arena. But at the same time, we will even do kind of mock things against each other, or we'll pick the best trolls we can find, people that are somewhat articulate, and see what they can do, see what arguments. The thing is, we kind of like with me, I wasn't even going to put the clues out there unless I was pretty sure I could answer every follow-up question that was around it. I was that nervous about doing it. Meaning it's like, okay, what about this? What about this? What about this? And I tried to use the scientific method and come all the way full circle to when I've made the first clue. It's like kind of like when you take a test in school and you're pretty sure you aced it, pretty sure, but you're not 100% sure. You're sitting down and like, oh, you don't want to put the paper on the desk. That's kind of like what I did. So again, there are certain scientific, physicists could come back and try certain things, but we've already been delving into their books anyway, so we're pretty sure we know what they're going to say if they even came at us, which even reinforces us more. So I don't know what to tell you. It's a weird situation, which I've never seen with any other conspiracy. It just keeps feeding. It's a feedback loop that doesn't seem to want to quit.
Well, in a somewhat closing kind of off ramp, I'm curious if we can talk comics for a minute.
Sure. What do you want to know?
I'm curious, just I guess, obviously in the documentary you had the poster of Alex Ross, the Kingdom Come splash page. I'm curious, what do you read comics Like, are you a Wednesday Warrior? Do you read them casually? Do you like is Alex Ross your favorite artist? Like, what? I'm just curious.
Okay, so in fact, I've got my books over there. I don't think this thing will reach. So I owned. Oh God, how should I even go into this? I started up a comic book shop in Washington way back in the late.
Wait, you owned a comic book store?
Yeah, it was called Digital Justice. Wasn't my name. It was my right-hand man's name.
We've been talking for 2 hours. I've seen so many interviews with you, and Mark, what? You owned a comic book store?
Yeah.
Mark, why don't you talk about this all the time?
Why?
Well, actually, you know what? Never mind. Don't talk about it ever, except for here.
Okay.
Because honestly, I don't want that to be a stereotype associated with comic book readers. But I owned
a comic book store called Digital Justice. It was initially going to be, but I was always a huge comic book fan. But comic books didn't really get interesting. I was so lucky, I in the '80s, like when Dark Knight Returns first came out. Huge Frank Miller fan. Huge Sienkiewicz.
Sienkiewicz, yeah. Still Sienkiewicz.
Daredevil. Frank Miller when he did Daredevil. I should look at the books on the shelf. I loved the artwork, but then when Alex Ross came out, when he did Marvels, and then of course Kingdom Come just blew my mind. I've got everything on my shelf right now. I boiled down to the best graphic novels that I wouldn't mind reading again on a regular basis. So, I like some stories, but I like the best of the stories. I love the fact that when I was a kid in the 70s, when Frank Miller did Daredevil, that it eventually became a graphic novel in the 80s. I loved it when they said, okay, this is the stuff, to put together. But then let me throw out some other stuff real fast. I remember I was in a rut because I pretty much run out of stuff to read. And I'd read some fringe stuff. I was like, but then I called up my friend who was a huge comic book geek. And he goes, you want to look into some stuff? He goes, it'll take you down a whole other road. He goes, let's start looking into Stormwatch. I go, really? Stormwatch? So where superheroes gone wrong. The Boys, come on. The Boys doesn't even hold a candle to what Warren Ellis, whatever Warren Ellis would write. I was like, I didn't care. And then when it got into the peak for me, hit when he did, and I've got the Absolute collections over there, Planetary and the Authority. When those came out, that was it for me. It was like that was the top of the mountain because I was like, holy smokes. This is what superheroes, because I never got into, which is why The Boys was just so, it's like, oh, about time he got around to this. It's like people understand that, people are corrupted by power, and superheroes are not going to punch the bad guys and let them live and do good things. It's like truth, justice, the American way. No, none of that stuff. One of my favorite things was, you probably saw when they were talking about the Four. The fact that it was something I joked about. I shouldn't joke, but when I was talking about gods in general, your major religions. It's like, look, you got to remember the first god that shows up wins, right? Which was what the whole planetary thing was. When the Fantastic Four, which I think was a funny choice, Fantastic Four shows up first, right? And then he said, you know what? Any other superhero shows up, they're dead. We'll kill them, and we'll steal their powers, and we'll exploit the whole world. We'll basically run the world behind the scenes. Loved the entire concept because it was real. It was, it was the whole, but the parodies inside I thought was great. Trying to think of other books that are on the shelf. Just, I was a big fan of little isolated, like graphic novels. Like I'm thinking of like one that's on the shelf, like Wonder Woman, A League of One. That was a great one-off thing that wasn't in the, wasn't in the soft cover versions, but anything that Alex Ross did, anything that he did. And now, granted, he got paid a lot for covers. He was paid to do covers and then did nothing on the inside. Astro City did all the Astro Cities. Hang on. Say that. Grabbing just to crap some stuff off my shelf. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
So. And forgive me because of the dust jackets. I'm not a big fan of dust jackets. So, Batman Arkham Asylum.
Yep. Yeah. Old Dirty Grant Morrison and Dave
Grant
McKean.
Morrison. the complete Frank Miller Batman that goes back to
Yeah,
which
that print run actually is actually pretty pricey. I think that specific hardcover is worth a little chunk of change.
I hope it is, because not only I have two of them, right?
Yeah.
I have this one, right, which is a normal one, but you're gonna like this. You're the first person I've showed this to. Ready? This one is upside down.
What? They fucked up printing it?
Yeah,
it got bound upside down?
The whole thing is bound upside down. So you have to read it like this. I never told anybody. And in fact, is this one signed? Or is the other one signed by Frank Miller? I can't remember. Let's see. I know
when did you get it? Did you get it signed, or did you just pick it up secondhand signed?
No. I took that one I got signed. It was pre-signed. No, I went down to freaking Comic-Con because I knew Frank Miller was going to be there that year, 2004, and then he didn't show up to a particular group, and I was like, damn it. Here's Wonder Woman: A League of One. I thought that was great. Mm-hmm. And then every once in a while I'd be like Alien, Predator, Deadliest of the Species. I thought that was a cool one. Let's see. Oh, here's even before, like here's your boys right here. Ready? JLA Earth 2.
Yeah, that Frank Quitely stuff is great in there.
Yeah. They just mess with you. There's Homelander right there.
Yeah.
Two more. Electro Assassin.
Great. Yep. Love Electro Assassin.
And then one which I've been kind of referencing recently because everything's been going on, which is Frank Miller, Give Me Liberty.
Oh man, especially that first volume, first like 4 issues is just amazing. A lot of people are like upset or sad about Dave Gibbons's kind of quality of work that dips off later in his career. And that's the book that I always point to of like, watch his illustrations in Watchmen are amazing, but his illustrations in Give Me Liberty, that first volume, not the later stuff, but that first volume it's so crazy that you can see somebody just like almost reckoning with their legacy on the page. Like he's trying to outdraw Watchmen every time he sits down, and it's so cool to read. And then of course the later stuff is, it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah. They had to go somewhere. It's like, did you have to make a sequel? But I mean, the fact the secession from the Union and everything's happening. It's going. It's like, wow. And
how Martha Washington gets dipped in the toxic acid and gets her hair bleached blonde and like, I love that book.
And then when the comic book movies came out, again, I'm old enough to remember, when Jack Nicholson Batman came out back in '89. And then I remember I was like the oldest person in the room. I think I was 40 when Watchmen, I went to a midnight showing of Watchmen, when it came out, packed theater, look behind me, everybody's 20. It's like, great. But and I saw, the comic book movies when they came out, it's like, as some got it right and a lot got it wrong. By the way, for me, just, because I know we're dragging this out, the whole Avengers thing, when Thanos took out half of the, was it half of the universe? Yeah, that was it. That was the end of the thing for me. It was like, that's it. That's it. The series is over. You don't have to do a sequel. It's over. They lost. That's because Thor screwed up. And so I remember catching the final one at a theater in New Zealand, out of all places. Packed house. Was going, yeah, I suppose. I remember all these YouTube channels saying it's not going to be a time travel movie. I was going, do you know anything about time travel? Because it's absolutely going to be a time travel movie. Whatever. So anyway, yes, comic books throughout my life, but I treated it, for me, it was kind of like movies. I challenge anybody. The best year in movies was 1999. Never the sheer volume of content didn't get any better after that. And for comic books, it's like, I've been waiting for friends. Like, if you find any decent, storylines that that might pique, my interest, I don't know. But the comic books, as have been getting creamed recently.
Right. Yeah, they really have. It's interesting though, because like most of the stuff you mentioned is like big 2 superhero stuff. So you're not really interested in the indie stuff. It's pretty superhero.
Yeah, it is. But again, that's just I grew up with the old school stuff. Silver Age type stuff. So, but I had friends that were into, friends that were like into Spawn, friends that were into Lobo.
Yeah. Lobo. Yeah.
Those things. I mean, I had all sorts of friends. Same thing with friends. Every one of my friends like was a huge Magic the Gathering guy. I never owned a single card, but I played in all their games because I got proxied. So it was the same thing. It's like I'd let them. I'd have people filter out the stuff for me. It's like, what's cool in comic books, and because I just didn't have the time to. I mean, but I had friends that would go in every week. Yeah, it was like
Wednesday Warrior. Oh yeah,
pick up the the stuff off the rack.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
well, this is if nothing else, thank you for talking to us for 9 hours about a bunch of
2.5 hours.
Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure.
And of course, I was like, oh yeah, it'll just be like 30 minutes or something. And now
no, it never. I knew. No, nobody ever talks for 30 minutes. Ever.
Yeah.
About this stuff.
I like I said, I appreciate you coming on. Obviously, we don't necessarily agree on anything, but
right.
I feel like I don't know. I feel like the conversation was interesting. It was nice to talk to you and see that there's a human behind the it's interesting how everybody gets made into a monolith online and how everybody's always like, this person's evil and pulling all of the strings, even when they're just like somebody in the fucking punk community.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's nice to.
No, I am not some evil overlord, and I'm not I don't think I'm a monster anyway.
Well, I hope you wear a mask at the conference.
We even have a Flat Earth comic book that just came out.
Oh God, is it like a superhero thing? Is it Flat Earthman?
It's no. It's more of not even Men in Black. More of like an X-Filesy thing,
where they're like going around uncovering the conspiracies about Flat Earth. Or?
I think he's being kind of drugged through it. I'll see if I'll see if I've got the thing. I'll send it to you.
That's so funny.
But the artwork's very, they steal the artwork. You could tell is stolen from a bunch of different stuff. But it's interesting.
Oh my God, they stole the art. Wait, what does that mean?
No,
they photoshopped.
No, the style.
No,
I mean, I'm looking at it going, how do you pronounce it? Sienkiewicz?
Sienkiewicz.
Really?
Yeah. It's spelled Sienkiewicz, but it's Polish, so it's pronounced Sienkiewicz.
Sienkiewicz. The guy that did some of the Elektra.
Uh-huh. Yep. Huh. Big Teeth, New Mutants.
Well, okay. Right. Yeah, I had New Mutants. Yeah.
Stray Toasters and yeah.
Oh, sorry. One more. Last thing, real quick, would be the oh God, was it Earth X? Oh yeah,
Alex Ross, Jim Kruger. Yeah,
I loved the Earth X, and of course I had to take it out of its freaking plastic case because it wouldn't fit on the shelf. The big graphic novel with its stupid 3D case. Mm-hmm. But I got chills when I watched Galactus take out two of the Celestials.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It isn't getting more epic than that. Marvel, learn something. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean they definitely have well, I guess that's not even true. I was going to say they haven't done a big Galactus thing like that recently, but they actually kind of just did recently. I don't know if you're following any of the like Cosmic Ghost Rider stuff that happened a couple years ago.
I haven't, but good stuff.
A lot of people really like it. Yeah, right. He's developed a big fan base. Basically, there's one of the heralds is a Ghost Rider, so he's a skull guy, on a cosmically powered motorcycle, and they do kind of like a lone wolf and cub thing where Cosmic Ghost Rider has to raise a reborn baby Thanos. So they're like going across the universe, having adventures and stuff. And
wow.
Yeah. So, if you're into that kind of stuff, that might be something to look out for. Yeah.
And by the way, I didn't know that until, again, friends told me until they said, oh yeah, if you haven't checked like the Inhumans, didn't even know they were a thing.
Oh yeah.
Inhumans. Yeah. It's like, and then they used him, Black Bolt, to summon Galactus in Earth X. I was going, interesting choice.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, I'm a big Kirby fan, so all of that old school, like, stuff that came out of the original 103 issues of Fantastic Four is like solid to me.
Yeah. And maybe that's why in the in Planetary they paid so much homage to the Four.
Oh yeah, totally. Because they were like Marvel's first family. Like if you like, it's interesting seeing the kind of like shitty monster comics that Stan was in air quotes writing prior to their implementation, and then like the stuff that he and Jack started doing with Fantastic Four. It takes a little while to find its footing, but then it's like, oh wow, this is like you know, to go to the X-Files thing that you just said, of like, you know how when like a show just kind of captures the zeitgeist, where like either Buffy or X-Files or, you know, whatever you want to point to in the mid 2000s, there's that show that just like slots right into culture. And that's kind of what that early Fantastic Four stuff was.
Yeah. I was always wondering, it's like, it was neat to see, you know, it was Fantastic Four. They were the ones that were going to take over the world. Superman, Green Lantern, Flash, backhand them out of existence. Awesome. Yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. If you need anything else or any resources or any links or whatever, just shoot me a thing. I'll give it to you.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks a lot, man. Really appreciate you making the time.
Mm-hmm.
See you guys. Bye.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.
What the fuck just happened?
I don't know.
Did I just become friends with Mark Sargent? Like,
I think you did.
So my initial question is, how much of that are we using? Because part of me kind of feels like we should just use it all, because it's so weird.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Deep Cuts is a production by Boy Genius Media. If you'd like to find this show and others like it, please visit boygeniusmedia.com or deepcutspod.com.
If you want to join in on post-episode discussions, please join the Deep Cuts Podcast Facebook group. Finally, subscribe to our YouTube channel for additional video content.